In 1552, 600 souls on board the São João faced unimaginable horrors that would leave only 24 of its crew alive. This is their story. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true horror stories every week. Now, let's get to the story. The São João, a Portuguese ship brimming with treasures, set sail for Lisbon. From the moment it left port, the ship experienced harsh conditions. However, the São João sailed on, not knowing their dreams of riches would turn into a nightmare. The change came subtly at first, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. It was as if the sea itself was whispering secrets. A shift in the wind, a subtle change in the color of the sky, a hint of something brewing on the horizon. The experienced eyes of the sailors recognized the signs. They knew the sea was a fickle mistress, capable of turning from calm to deadly in the blink of an eye. The once gentle breeze began to pick up, whipping the sails and sending shivers down the spines of even the most hardened sea dogs. The sun disappeared behind thick, dark clouds, casting an eerie pallor over the ship. Panic began to ripple through the passengers. The sense of unease was palpable. The captain barked orders to his men, but even his voice held a tremor of uncertainty. The storm was upon them faster than anyone could have anticipated. The wind, now a howling gale, tore at the sails. The ship was tossed about like a leaf in a torrent. Lightning illuminated the terror etched on the faces of those on board. The crashing thunder drowned out the frantic shouts of the crew and the prayers of the terrified passengers. The São João was now at the mercy of nature's fury, a plaything in the grip of an unstoppable force. The storm raged on, its fury unrelenting. Each wave that crashed against the ship seemed to carry with it the weight of a mountain. The São João, once a proud vessel, was now a fragile shell fighting against the inevitable. The crew worked tirelessly to keep the ship afloat, but the sea, in its relentless assault, showed no mercy. The sails, battered by the howling wind, flapped wildly, torn and tattered. The relentless rain pelted down, a cold, unfeeling force that added to the chaos. The deck, slick with water, became a treacherous battlefield. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the air as the mainmast splintered and fell. The crew's frantic efforts to control the damage were in vain. The São João was at the mercy of the storm, and it was clear that their struggle was a losing battle. By the time it was too late, the crew realized they were being thrown at a coast lined with jagged rocks, like the teeth of some monstrous beast awaiting its prey. The passengers and crew braced themselves for the impact. With a final, agonizing lurch, the São João struck the rocks. The force of the impact threw passengers and crew around like ragdolls. The sea, relentless in its fury, surged over the shattered remains of the ship. The waves, merciless and unyielding, pulled those that could not escape the wreckage under. The dream of riches had turned into a fight for survival. As the storm began to abate, the first light of dawn revealed the extent of the devastation. The survivors, their faces etched with exhaustion and despair, had survived by clinging onto debris or being washed ashore, and they were now surveying the wreckage. The sea, now calm and indifferent, had claimed its due. The survivors knew that their fight was far from over. They were shipwrecked on an unknown shore, their future uncertain. But in the face of such adversity, they found a glimmer of hope. They were alive, and as long as they drew breath, they would continue to fight for survival. However, the survivors of the São João faced a harsh reality. Their only way home lay broken and battered upon the rocks, and after a head count, they were devastated to find that only about 1 in 6 people on board a ship of 600 had survived. They now found themselves stranded on an unknown shore somewhere in Africa, with hardly any supplies. The immediate concern was survival. With limited resources and no knowledge of the land, the survivors had to rely on their wits and resilience. So the captain, along with his crew, made plans to move inland in hopes of reaching the colony of Mozambique. The hostile environment offered little comfort. The shoreline was rugged and unforgiving, with jagged rocks and dense, thorny vegetation. Food and fresh water were scarce. The survivors scavenged what they could from the wreckage, but it was clear that their supplies would not last long. They realized they had to find supplies or people soon, or they would not survive. So, despite the dangers, they ventured into the unknown terrain, searching for anything that could sustain them. But the land was barren, dry, and teeming with dangerous wild animals, poisonous plants, and treacherous landscapes. Each step was a gamble. Despite the overwhelming challenges, the survivors found strength in unity. They worked together, pooling their skills and knowledge. The captain and the crew, seasoned by years at sea, took charge of building makeshift shelters and securing food. But despite their efforts, they were simply not cut out for the environment. Soon some in the crew started dying. Causes of death ranged from starvation to heat stroke. Water was scarce and had to be rationed among the strongest in the group. Many were injured during the wreck and did not last long either. Days turned into weeks, and the survivors' situation remained precarious. They battled hunger, illness, and the elements, their bodies growing weaker with each passing day. They tried everything they could to keep their spirits up. The survivors built signal fires and constructed rafts, hoping to attract the attention of passing ships. They knew that there was no one coming for them. Still, they refused to give up. As the days stretched on, they faced unimaginable hardships. It is believed that they were forced to resort to cannibalism as a last resort. Their dreams of riches had been replaced by the nightmare of a singular goal: survival. In the face of nature's fury and the harshness of their new reality, some discovered just how much they are willing to do to survive. Amidst the daily struggles for survival, a profound tragedy struck the survivors of the São João. The captain's wife succumbed to the harsh conditions and malnourishment. Her passing marked a turning point that was felt by all. They were at their breaking points. Some had gone mad already, while others were becoming violent toward one another, fighting over whatever scraps they had left. The captain tried to keep the survivors' hopes up, but even he knew how hopeless the situation had become. On a hill, a group of men were watching the survivors intently. The crew were unaware that for the last few days, they had been silently observed by the locals of South Africa, and soon they would be approached. In a foreign land with dangers around every corner, the question is this: will they survive the encounter? As the survivors of the São João navigated the scalding hot landscape, they faced a final desperate encounter with the local inhabitants that could either mean salvation or damnation. The survivors noticed men coming down a hill toward them. The survivors' hope turned to dread when they saw the men were armed with spears and bows. Tension was thick in the air. The locals, wary of the foreign presence, approached with caution. The survivors, now less than 24 of the original 600, stood their ground, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and hope. The captain, still reeling from the loss of his wife but driven by an unyielding resolve, stepped forward. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace, his eyes meeting those of the local leader. The silence was deafening, a moment suspended in time. Slowly, the local leader mirrored the captain's gesture. The tension began to ease, replaced by a tentative understanding. Through gestures and broken words, they communicated their plight, the story of their harrowing journey and their desperate need for help. The locals, moved by the survivors' resilience and suffering, decided to offer aid. They provided food, shelter, and guidance, helping the survivors to navigate the unfamiliar terrain, finally bringing an end to their long ordeal. This encounter marked the first meeting between Europeans and South Africans, a moment of historical significance born out of necessity and humanity. For the survivors, this unexpected alliance was a beacon of hope. It was a turning point, a reminder that even in the direst circumstances, compassion and understanding could prevail. With the locals' help, the survivors found a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. Thank you for watching, and remember to like and subscribe for more weekly videos. You can support me via my PayPal link in the channel description. I will see you again next week.